much for being here. I'm Zoe Gross, Director of Advocacy at the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. I'm going to read a piece that I wrote 10 years ago after the first day of mourning, which was amazingly 10 years ago. And I'm going to read about how press and disability organizations responded to filicide at that time. There was a lot of negativity in the press and from many disability organizations about victims of filicide, and a lot of sympathy for perpetrators. We've seen big changes since then. When I started Day of Mourning, it was considered a controversial and possibly anti-parent event that was avoided by some organizations because they didn't want to get involved in that. Now many disability organizations are here with us mourning today. When I started Day of Mourning, the prevalent news coverage of filicides was very negative about the victims and very sympathetic towards the perpetrators. I've seen that slowly begin to change. We haven't seen enough change. We will never see enough change until we end ableist violence. But what we do here has meaning and it has impact. And that what we do here, what we've been doing for the past 10 years, has created change and continues to create change. I just wanted to note that before I do the reading. So this is Killing Words. I wrote it 10 years ago in April of 2012. Let me present to you a sequence of events. On March 6th, 2012, a 22-year-old autistic man named George Hodgins was murdered in Sunnyvale, California. His mother, Elizabeth, pulled out a gun, shot him, and then killed herself. In the following days and weeks, journalists wrote about George Hodgins' murder. In their articles, they called him, quote, low-functioning and high-maintenance, and called his murderer, quote, a devoted and loving mother. They sought out quotes from other parents of autistic children who normalized the crime by saying things like, quote, every mother I know who has a child with special needs has a moment just like that. People came to comment on these articles. They said that they felt sympathy for the mother. They called her George's guardian angel. They said no one should judge her unless they had walked in her shoes. They said it wasn't wrong because he was autistic and autistic children are difficult to raise. They said that it wasn't wrong because she was obviously responding to a lack of services. In fact, she had refused services. They said that it wasn't wrong because he was disabled, so his life couldn't have been very good anyway. On March 8th, 2012, Robert Latimer went on television to talk about how loving and compassionate it was when he murdered his disabled daughter, Tracy. He called for what he referred to as euthanasia, by which he meant the murder of disabled children by their parents, to be legalized in Canada. A woman who appeared on television with him agreed. She said she had 2 disabled children who she would like to kill, but she can't because it's against the law. No opposing viewpoints were presented. On March 17th, 2012, the Autism Society released a statement about, quote, the tragedy of Elizabeth Hodgins, which, quote, shows that high stress on parents is very common in the autism community. The statement, signed by both Autism Society presidents, blamed her actions on a lack of services. They also noted that, quote, the divorce rate among parents with a child with autism is as high as 70% due to the pressure, which is a myth that was debunked in 2010. They never mentioned George's name. On March 31st, 2012, Patricia Corby drowned her 4-year-old autistic son Daniel in the bathtub in San Diego, California. We need to start looking at these murders as copycat crimes which are encouraged when murders of disabled people receive positive press coverage. Just as Katie McCarran's murder followed the video Autism Every Day, which normalized thoughts of homicide directed towards an autistic child, Daniel Corby's murder follows George Hodgins' murder, and subsequent media coverage which excused, explained away, or even promoted the murder of disabled people by our parents. When journalists call murderers loving and devoted parents, when television shows give Robert Latimer airtime, when parents normalize murder by saying that all special needs parents have murderous thoughts, the result is an environment in which these murders are seen as acceptable. Media coverage like this sends a message that homicide is a normal, understandable response to discomfort one might experience while parenting a disabled child. And we can't pretend that other parents of disabled kids aren't hearing that message. Let me present to you a sequence of events. If you wrote an article about George Hodgins' murder, or if you gave a quote for one, or if you covered it on television, blogged about it, or commented on it, and if you said that no one should judge the murder as wrong, if you said that Elizabeth Hodgins was driven to murder by George's autism or by lack of services, if you called the murder understandable, if you said it was a mercy killing, If you said all parents of special needs children have felt this way, please take a moment to wonder if Patricia Corby heard you. Thank you.